What is a synthesizer? How does it work? Imagine that you've just recorded this guitar. There's a wave file. A synthesizer uses mathematical formulas to generate those same waves. This is the Subtractor, the synthesizer of reason. It has a number of sections, as does any synthesizer. I'll go into these sections in more detail. But first, let's have a look at the oscillator section. The oscillator section is the heart and soul of any synthesizer. It's what's used to generate the sound. The way it generates sound is by the use of what's known as a waveform. Let's have a listen to some waveforms. This is the sawtooth wave. This is the square wave. This is the triangle wave. And this is the sine wave. There are other different types of waves, but these are the four most common. Phase modulation can be used to generate other sounds off of these base waveforms. It duplicates the waveform and subtracts it from the original waveform. Here, I've selected the multiplication mode, which instead of subtracting, multiplies it with the original signal. Most synthesizers include more than one oscillator. Using multiple oscillators, you can make your sounds more interesting. Here, I'm creating alternate timbres by simply detuning the second oscillator with the first. Frequency modulation works by modulating the pitch of the first oscillator by using the second. As you can hear, you can get many different timbres by simply using this method. The noise generator simply generates white noise, similar to what you hear off your TV. Let's have a look at the filter section. The filter is very similar to an equalizer in that it removes frequencies. However, instead of an equalizer lowering the frequencies, a filter removes them altogether. You're hearing a low pass filter. It removes the high frequencies and allows the lows to pass, hence low pass. Resonance exaggerates the frequencies near the frequency point. It gives you a more pronounced sweep effect. A bandpass filter creates a band of mid-range frequencies by removing the low frequencies and the very high frequencies. A high-pass filter is the opposite of a low-pass. It allows the high frequencies to pass through and filters out the lows. A notch filter creates a small notch of frequencies around the filter cutoff point. Let's have a look at the LFO. An LFO is a low frequency oscillator and is similar to a normal oscillator except that it doesn't produce sound. It's used instead to control another parameter, such as a filter or volume. Here I'm going to control the pitch with the low frequency oscillator. Increasing the rate increases the speed of the effect. Now I'm going to control the filter with the oscillator. Now I'll show you the sync mode. The sync mode sets the LFO in time with the master BPM of the song. This is useful for timed effects. The LFO is great for creating movement in your sounds and helps them sound more sonically interesting. Let's have a look at the envelope. Envelopes are used to control parameters similar to an LFO. The only difference being is that it's triggered every time you hit a note, and that you're given the option of controlling the shape, using the attack, decay, sustain and release. To help explain this, I'm going to play a short melody on the keyboard. Notice the short, sharp way I played it. First of all, I'm going to show you the amp envelope, or volume envelope. Here I'm tweaking the sustain. The sustain represents the volume of a sustained note. So when I hold down the note, what volume is it going to be? Now I'm changing the attack. The attack represents the time for it to go to 0 to the maximum value. So in this case, from silence to full noise. The decay represents the time to go from full noise to the sustain value. The release represents the time for it to go to silence after I let go of the note. Notice the sharp, stabby phrase I originally played is gone. The same applies to any envelope. Now I'm changing the filter envelope. This is useful for wah effects. Now I'm changing the mod envelope. The mod envelope can control any one of the parameters that are listed, from oscillator pitch, to frequency modulation, to filters. Envelopes, similar to LFOs, are useful for creating movement in your sound, and helps them sound more interesting. These are the velocity settings. They simply allow you to change parameters by simply playing harder or softer on the keyboard. But let's have a look at the global settings. Polyphony represents how many notes you can play simultaneously on the synthesizer, and portamento glides pitch-wise from note to note. The mod wheel is a great tool for live performance. I'm going to use it to spice up this bass line. The mod wheel basically allows you easy access to certain parameters. The knobs to the right of the mod wheel show exactly what it's doing. Here I'm using it to adjust the frequency, the resonance and the LFO. So there you go. I hope you've learned a little bit about synthesizers and how they can be used.